Hi there, I'm Matt Christensen, the investigative reporter at TV6, and this is another TV6 Investigates Talks, and that's where our team gets together to go a little bit deeper into some of the issues that we've been reporting on, and I'm here today with Heidi Connect.
Last week we brought you a story of a family who is having trouble in a home with an unresponsive landlord. Problems all over the house, and they decided to leave. And this week we bring you a story of another family who's having a lot of problems with their landlord as well.
Right, and what we're trying to do with the series is sort of address some of these larger community issues that are playing into what's become a housing crisis in the Quad Cities through the lens of the people who are in some of these tough housing situations. So tonight we're going to meet Courtney Scott, and she lives in Rock Island with her children in an apartment, and she's left the place recently after some inspections. So let's take a look at the inside of the house. This is where we were at when I met with her not too long ago.
I had reported that this part of the ceiling, the water damage spot, was growing bigger. They canceled that work order. And then 10 days later, water started pouring from here. And when I called the emergency line, they said that that was an emergency. They didn't send anyone out for 2 days. Then when the plumbing company came out the second day later, this is how they left my kitchen.
Yeah, so we saw there one of the rooms in the house, and believe me, a lot of the other rooms were in similar condition. So, and it's tough for Courtney in particular because she falls into categories that put her at higher risk for being unhoused.
She's a single mom.
She's a single mom, and the number of families who have become homeless is on the rise by 15%. She is a black person, and so she's 3 times more likely to be poor in the Quad Cities. And she's a veteran. And tonight, I think 21,000 veterans maybe will sleep on a couch or in a hotel or somewhere other than a bed in their own home. So, all of those things are sort of happening to Courtney now.
Yeah.
And so all these things are kind of converging on her. But, she's trapped in a situation where, she can't get out because she's on disability and she just doesn't have the money or the freedom to be able to move right now. And, that's another problem with a lot of folks too, is they simply just don't have the funds to be able to walk away from a situation. And, this notion of sort of bootstrapping is something that at least community leaders in the Quad Cities right now are kind of really pushing back against when it comes to the housing crisis. We talked to Ladrina Wilson, for example, who's a former president of the Chamber of Commerce who now runs a consulting firm, and she really talked about the stigma that exists around homelessness or unhoused people, or even just people trapped in substandard housing.
Yeah, not being, like you said, bootstrapping, not being able to lift themselves up from the problems that they're facing.
Yeah, and I don't think, at least from the folks that we've talked to as part of our series, it's not for a lack of trying. They've just run into situations where, rent is so high right now, and it's outpacing wages. So,
And it's going to get higher.
yeah, it's going to get higher. What's it supposed to be next year, based on census projections?
$1,025.
$1,025 a month for a 2-bedroom apartment in the Quad Cities. So, that's even higher than it was last year when it was about $800, and this year it's
900
and something. So you're seeing, more than a 10% raise every year, on that rent rate in the Quad Cities. What you're not seeing are those similar raises in pay and wages. So your housing is essentially more expensive than it was last year or the year before.
Yeah, and when you're only making so much a month and you're paying sometimes half of that, half of your paycheck goes to your housing, it's hard to save money when you need to or want to move somewhere else.
Right, and that's another major problem too.
Yeah, they call it being house poor.
Right.
When you're paying much more in.
Right, I think the rule
More
of
in
thumb
rent.
is somewhere like 30% of your income should go to housing, and
Yeah, which I remember when I was growing up, it was 25%. So even that has gone up.
yeah, but there's some 20-something thousand families in the Quad Cities right now are considered extremely house poor, I believe. So let's talk a little bit about what else we're going to see as the series comes to an end in Rent Trap Part 3. We're going to talk solutions a little bit.
Yep. We're going to talk to people who are working actively to help people in situations before they become homeless. We talked to Habitat for Humanity.
Sure, and Fear French and some other places that are in the housing space and trying to help people out, but you know,
They all
I think
talk about it being a drop in the bucket.
Right,
They almost all said that.
right. I think that's the one thing that they all agree on is that there needs to be some major policy changes or shifts in the way we think about this for there to be real meaningful changes, because rehabbing or building a house or two or three or four at a time doesn't put a dent in the 6,000 housing units that have been lost in the Quad Cities over the last 10 years. So pretty stark math, but there's hope. Otherwise, you know, people wouldn't be working in this space. So we'll go over a little bit of some of the efforts in the Quad Cities that are underway to not just raise awareness around the housing issue and try to make it a priority, but the folks who are actually getting people in apartments.
I will say the
into-
people we talk to are very passionate
Oh,
about what
absolutely.
they do.
Right, right.
They care about the community, and it's not easy taking on this
No.
problem. So they talk to us about some of the things they have to come up against to get things through, to
Right.
make projects happen.
So I'll leave you with this today, and I think that's another thing we heard from all of our sources that we talked to, is that this isn't just a singular issue, that the housing situation or the crisis is woven into all kinds of other stuff in the community. So when you think about people who are living in substandard housing, children tend to do worse at school. You know, food insecurity becomes an issue. So, you know, all of these things sort of spiral or domino into each other, and, you know, and I think a consistent thread that we're seeing is this housing crisis. So that's why so many community leaders are focused on it right now, while there's a campaign underway to kind of raise awareness of the situation that the Quad Cities is in. So we'll be back on the next TV6 Investigates Talks next week to maybe talk a little bit of part 3 about the series, but go a little deeper into maybe some of the other stories we've been working on too, because we stay quite busy here. So if you want to catch up on some of that reporting, you can check it out on our website and news app at kwqc.com. You can click on the Investigates tab there and see all of the stuff we're up to. And you can also tune in here on Thursdays at 2:30 when we go over in depth a little more of the stuff we're working on as part of our talk series. So thanks, Heidi, for hanging out with us. And we'll see you next time.